Greetings, brethren. Hausburger Donkey here with hopefully the second to last installment of the speed paint for the Roman Republicans. One step I did forget to film. I don't know why. I just forgot. Is the leather around the lorica hamata at the top, the around the shoulder thingies, they have these leather bits, and what I used is do I still have them sitting here somewhere? Yes and no. Yeah. Okay. So I used Vallejo model color Cavalry Brown and Panzer Aces Dark Rust, just in a sort of a 50-50 thing. So half of them have the Cavalry Brown, half of them have Dark Rust. And then literally all I did is I went over it with a dark brown wash. So in this case, Agrax Earthshade, but you could use all sorts of other paints. Doesn't really matter. And that's it. I didn't do anything fancy with that because, well, it's really not necessary. Because as you can see, they actually already look pretty good. Now that we have everything painted and the metal is nice and highlighted, it's shiny, it draws the eye, and all the other stuff around it just looks painted well enough. And that's all we really want. So now comes the next part, the basing. And the last part, next video, is going to be the shields. But this time we're gonna do all the basing stuff. So first of all, we have to get them off these things. If you have blue tack that isn't garbage, you can blue tack them to these, to these sticks. That makes getting them off a little bit easier because I have to super glue them on, which means I have to destroy the sticks that they're on. As you can see, I usually go before and after each figure and just sort of bend it away from the figure. Do that on both sides. And it doesn't matter if we, rip these to pieces or not. I try to not because it's easier to clean up afterwards, but they are trash either way, so we're not going to reuse them ever because they're just garbage. So, and then we carefully try to rip them off. They'll have a little bit of it stuck at the bottom still, but that's okay. Now this one needs a bit more work, especially on this side. Some bits falling off the wood. All right, here we go. And like so, we get them all off. And then with the knife, we clean off any of the remaining pieces. We can rip off some of the big ones and then just sort of get underneath the wood chips and get them off as much as possible. Doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be showing all plastic. It's important that it's kind of even so that we can properly glue it on the base. You do that with all of them. And in this case, my new basing method for ancients, medieval, old stuff like that is 80 by 50 millimeter bases. So this is going to hold 8 figures, actually, like so. And usually a unit of any normal army would be 2 of these bases together. That's one of my units. I like this because it just makes the units easier to move. They're not too many different bases. And if you're multi-basing anyway, why not multi-base more than 4 figures? I never really understood why 4 is the accepted number. So I like to go with 8. And I do like the 50 millimeter depth over the 40 millimeter depth. Actually, I can show you. I accidentally based these on 80 by 40 millimeters, and you can see they are the depth is a lot more sort of closer together than on these, but that also is going to make putting the shields on an absolute pain in the butt, and you'll have weapons sticking across the back, which makes it really difficult to sort of line them up with units behind them. It's not as bad in front of them unless they have really big spears, but yeah, and I just like having this extra centimeter of depth, because it just, once the shields are on, I think this is still, you know, fine for a distance between two ranks, but I like having 4 to an 80mm base, because I do like the sort of having them a bit more tighter together in that formation, instead of having a 100mm by 50mm base, so that every figure gets a 25mm base, basically. I still think this is better. It's a bit tighter, but this just makes it easier with the shield and with painting and all that. Right, so as you can see, they also already have filler on the base. And that's the next step. After you glue I glue them on with just regular old super glue, the figures, just in their formation. I won't do that on camera now because it's 8 figures, it's too many, it'll take too long. And it should look like this. You just glue them straight on the base. You could, if you wanted to, score the surface, but I found with MDF that's just not that necessary, especially if you're going to put on filler, which for this basing method I will absolutely use filler. Actually, let me grab the filler. Trying not to have everything collapse. Because I'm not going to paint the grit and sand and stuff I put on the base, so I want it to be, yeah, I just want it to be nice and even underneath. Because usually when I paint the grit, I can do a little bit more hiding of these lips by putting tufts in the right places and you know, other growth stuff, and it saves a little bit of time. But since I'm not doing that, I'm saving time on all the other steps. I'm gonna have to put filler on just to mask that out a bit. And I have my lovely little spatula here. It's a cheap dentist's tool, and this is actually perfect for scooping filler onto these bases. And we're not trying to get a completely plain surface. It doesn't matter if it goes down a little bit in between the two ranks. We're just trying to sort of smooth out these lips so that they don't stick out so much, because they do. It is quite significant, especially on the Victrix figures. They tend to have very thick integrated bases. We want to get rid of some of that height by just smoothing them out with filler. Just go around the whole base. Oh yeah, by the way, the total time thing, I kind of lost track, or I kind of lost count at some point. I'm pretty sure we are at about, at this stage, well, once I'm done with the basing, I should say, I'm probably going to be somewhere around 26 hours, 28 hours maybe. But I think we will definitely stay under 30 hours for 100 figures, which I think is absolutely great. And people who can spend more than like 5 hours a week painting their own figures, you know, people who aren't me, will be able to use this sort of technique to just pump out army after army after army really quickly. All right, and just go around, do that on all the bases. I'm not going to do the whole base now. It's it'll take too long, but this is about the idea, right? We're just hiding the lips, just making sure that it's somewhat smooth. It doesn't have to be super smooth, but smooth enough. All right. Right, then, let me just wash that tool off. Then the next step, once we have this, is that we want to paint the filler a little bit. If you have colored filler, that's better. It'll save you a step, but I don't have colored filler. I only have white filler, and that's a little bit too extreme. This will definitely show through the sanding stuff, the basing grit. So I'm using VMC Vallejo Model Color Dark Sand. Any sort of beige color will do. It doesn't really matter. This is just what I grasped first. Iraqi sand would probably actually be better, but I think mine is running a little low. So just mix in a little bit of water. We don't need it to be super thin, but we also don't want it to be too globby. And then we're just painting this over all the white. we don't have to paint all of the integrated bases with this. If some goes on, that's fine. If it doesn't, that's fine too. It's just important that we sort of take a little bit of the edge out of that white, because the white will shine through a lot more than the sort of grayish, brownish color that the integrated bases have right now from all the washing and dry brushing and stuff that we did on the figure. But yeah, we just go around, we paint the whole filler in dark sand or whatever other beige color we chose, and then we leave that to dry. I don't actually have a finished one sitting here because I already sanded those, but that's okay. I'll just show you. For the basing, I am using Luke's APS grit. This is a mix, however. I think this is 2 bags of his desert mix and 1 bag of the grasslands mix. It's one that has a bunch of this shrub stuff in it. When I ordered these, they didn't have the Mediterranean one in stock. I would have preferred that one, but they didn't have it, so I went with sort of a mix and made something that's pretty similar. So, what we are going to do now, let me actually pull the camera back a little bit so I can put down that box. There we go. Is this going to stand? Alright, just... whoop. Ugh. This is very awkward. Alright. So, now we're just gonna... these have been in for, I want to say... before I started this video, plus 5 minutes, so maybe 15 minutes. And that should be about good enough. I just painted the whole base after it was painted with the dark sand. I painted it with PVA glue, just slightly thinned down. As you can see here, that's about the consistency I went for. So it's a little bit more gloopy than regular PVA glue, but not too soggy. And I painted the whole base and then just sort of dunked them in so that the sand and stuff can soak nicely into it. And this is what we're left with. Let me just give it a nice preliminary blow. As you can see, this gives us lovely ground clutter. Good mix of sand, some tufts and stuff is in there, some static grass, other bits, and it looks great. And then we're just going to put some tufts on top of that. I don't think I'll do that live now. I'll just show you what tufts I'm going to be using. In this case, I'm going to be using some leftover blue flower tufts that I have from tajima1.co.uk, and then some of my own homemade tufts, and I'm going to use some darker ones, and then some more badlandy brown ones. Maybe also some of these more slightly golden ones. We'll see. But yeah, I'm not going to go too crazy on the tufts, just a few tufts here and there, just to make it look more interesting. And then after that, I will paint the rim of the base black, just straight up Vallejo model color black, and then they are ready for varnishing. And then the last step will be the shields. So, I'll make another video on the shields, and then at the end of that, these will already be finished, I think. As you can see, they are already looking pretty sweet even without their shields, but as soon as they have the shields, they will look really nice and complete, and all of that sort of rough look that they have from the dry brushing and stuff, that will be swallowed up a little bit more. I also will have to get a big soft brush. This setup is awful. There you go. And just clean them up a little bit, because they do get somewhat dusty from sitting in that pot. So just get rid of some of that. It'll drop some of this extra rocks as well. And yeah, just brush off all the figures, make them nice and shiny again. And that is that. Alright, I hope you enjoyed that. Again, one more part to this tutorial, and then the figures will be finished. And I'm pretty sure it'll be under 30 hours total. The shields I don't think will be that big of a deal. It'll be tedious, but it won't actually take that much time in total. Oh yeah, and I should also show, this is what the command bases look like. I didn't go crazy on them, just a Centurion, whatever these guys are called, and the guy with the trumpet on a round base, which is appropriate for Hail Caesar and all sorts of other games. Maybe not specifically for To the Strongest, but you could still use this as like a hero, I would say, in To the Strongest. Alright, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.